My name is Adrian Hewlett. I'm 32 years old. 5 years ago, my sister told my parents I dropped out of medical school. She said I'd thrown everything away for a woman with a drug problem. She said I was spiraling. Unstable. Ashamed? It was a lie. One precise, deliberate lie. My parents didn't ask questions. They didn't call my dean. They didn't wait for proof. They cut me off that same night, blocked my number, returned my letters unopened. They skipped my residency graduation. They weren't at my wedding. For 5 years, I wasn't their son. I was a cautionary tale. Last month, at Trey, my pager dragged me out of sleep. Level 1 trauma. Female. Sensual. Blunt abdominal injuries. Unstable vitals. I was already scrubbing in when I saw the name on the intake chart. Monica Hewlett. My sister. The ambulance doors burst open. She was unconscious. Blood soaking through her shirt. Oxygen mask fogging with shallow breaths. Behind the stretcher came my parents. Frantic. Disoriented. 5 years older than I remembered. Where's the chief? My father demanded. Get me the chief surgeon. The trauma nurse glanced through the glass doors toward the operating bay. Toward me. My name stitched in black across my white coat. The doors swung open. My mother saw the badge first. Then my face. She grabbed my father's arm so hard her fingers left marks. For 5 years, they believed I'd thrown my life away. Now I was the only thing standing between their daughter and death. Before I take you back to how this started, do me a favor. If this story hits something personal, like and subscribe. And drop your location and local time in the comments. Now let me take you back to the fall of 2019. I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, in a house where there were 2 children but only one headline. My sister Monica is 3 years older than me. She came out of the womb performing school plays, student council, debate captain. She could talk to any adult at any dinner table and have them laughing within 5 minutes. My parents loved that about her. My father, Jerry Hewlett, managed a manufacturing plant. My mother, Diane, did part-time bookkeeping and full-time reputation management for our family. In our house, appearances mattered. Obedience mattered. Monica delivered both effortlessly. I didn't. I wasn't rebellious. I didn't drink. Didn't sneak out. Didn't cause trouble. I just existed quietly. I liked biology. I liked order. I liked answers that could be proven. While Monica held court at Thanksgiving, I sat at the end of the table with a textbook open on my lap, memorizing cranial nerves between bites of turkey. There's a difference between being ignored and never being seen in the first place. 8th grade. I qualified for the state science fair. The only student from my school. Same weekend. Monica had a community theater performance. One guess where my parents went. I stood next to my project, an analysis on antibiotic resistance, while other kids had parents snapping photos. Mine sent a text. Break a leg to your sister tonight. I came home with a second-place ribbon. My dad glanced at it while flipping through the mail. That's good. Adrian. He didn't ask what the project was about. He never did. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I didn't need applause. I poured everything into grades. AP class. Volunteer hours at the local hospital. If I couldn't be the child they celebrated, I would become the one they couldn't dismiss. Monica and I weren't close, but we weren't openly hostile either. She'd ruffle my hair in front of people, call me professor, laugh like it was affectionate. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it wasn't. What I didn't understand back then was that our family operated on a spotlight system. There was only room for one person under it at a time. And for 18 years, that person had never been me. That changed the day an envelope arrived from Oregon Health and Science University. It came on a Tuesday in April. I remember because Monica was home that weekend, sitting at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone, while my dad slit the envelope open with a butter knife. He read silently at first, then slower. Oregon Health and Science University, Doctor of Medicine. He looked up at me. Really looked at me. For the first time in my life, I saw something close to respect in his eyes. And across the table, I saw something else in Monica's. The acceptance letter changed the temperature of our house overnight. My father read it twice, then a third time. We're slower. That's a real medical school, he said, finally, like he needed to confirm it out loud. 3,000 miles away. He looked at me, measuring. Maybe you'll actually make something of yourself. It wasn't warm. It wasn't emotional. But in our house, that was as close to pride as it got. I held on to it like oxygen. My mother called Aunt Ruth that night, then 2 neighbors. I stood in the hallway and listened to her say, Adrian got into medical school, in a voice I'd never heard directed at me before. At dinner, I glanced at Monica. She was smiling, supportive, perfect, but her eyes were still. Not proud, not excited, calculating. She hugged me after dessert. Portland. Huh. That's huge, she said. You're really doing it. For a moment, I thought maybe this was what having a sister felt like. The calls started that week. 2, sometimes 3 times. How's packing going? Who's your roommate? What's the class like? Do you know your schedule yet? She asked about everything: my professors, my study groups, the names of classmates I'd just met. She remembered details, followed up on them. It felt like interest. It felt like connection. Looking back, it was reconnaissance. When I moved to Portland that fall, the distance felt clean, surgical. 3,000 miles between me and the old hierarchy. In medical school, no one knew me as Monica's brother. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't the quieter option. I was just Adrian. The work was brutal. Anatomy labs that stretched past midnight. Exams that felt like intellectual demolition. But I thrived in it. For the first time, effort translated directly into recognition. I called home less. They called me even less than that. But Monica kept calling. How are your grades? Anyone interesting in your class? You're not burning out, right? There was something almost flattering about it. She sounded invested, concerned. When I went home for Christmas during my second year, I noticed something subtle. At dinner, when relatives asked about me, Monica answered before I could. Adrian's doing fine, she'd say smoothly. It's intense, but he's handling it. She spoke like she had access to my interior life, like she owned the narrative. The first real fracture came in my 3rd year, but it didn't start with her. It started with a diagnosis. 3rd year of medical school is where they separate the capable from the committed. Clinical rotations, real patients, real consequences. It's also when my best friend was diagnosed with stage IV pancreatic cancer. His name was Marcus Hale. We met first year over a shared hatred of biochemistry and a mutual addiction to cafeteria coffee. Marcus grew up in foster care. No safety net. No parents to call when things fell apart. By 3rd year, we were more than classmates. We were each other's emergency contact. The diagnosis came in August. I was in the room when the oncologist said metastatic. I watched Marcus nod like he was being told about the weather. He lasted 3 days before the denial cracked. There was no one else to step in. So I went to the dean the next morning. I explained everything. I filed for a formal leave of absence caregiver status. 1 semester. Paperwork stamped and signed. Sealed. My spot would be held. I would return in January. Everything was documented. Legitimate. Transparent. I moved into Marcus's apartment. Drove him to chemo. Slept in a folding chair during overnight admissions. Learned how to flush a port line without flinching, and for reasons I still don't fully understand. I called Monica. Maybe I thought she'd matured. Maybe I wanted one person from home to know the truth. I told her everything: the diagnosis, the leave of absence, the plan to return in the spring. Her voice softened instantly. Adrian, that's awful. You're doing the right thing. Don't worry about mom and dad. I won't stress them out with this. 3 days later, my phone rang at 11. I was sitting in a plastic hospital chair while Marcus slept through a morphine haze. Dad's name lit up the screen. Your sister told us everything. His voice was flat. Arctic. The dropping out. The girl. The drugs. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against tile. What are you talking about? Don't insult us. He snapped. Monica showed us the messages. You quit. You threw it away for some addict. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? My pulse roared in my ears. Dad. I filed a leave of absence. It's official. I can send you the... She said you'd have a story ready. My mother got on the line next. She sounded like she was already grieving. How could you lie to us for a year? I didn't lie. I said, I'm in a hospital right now. Marcus. Enough. The word cut clean through me. Do not call this house again until you're ready to tell the truth. The line went dead. 4 minutes and 12 seconds. That's how long it took my parents to erase me. 20 minutes later, a text from Monica. I'm sorry. I couldn't keep your secret anymore. There was a broken heart emoji at the end. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then I locked the phone and went back to Marcus's bedside. Over the next 5 days, I called 14 times. By the 4th call, my father had blocked me. By the 6th, my mother had too. I sent 2 emails. The second included the dean's direct number. The official leave documents attached as PDFs. No response. I wrote a handwritten letter and mailed it priority. 5 days later, it came back unopened. My mother's handwriting on the envelope. I called Aunt Ruth. She tried. Dad hung up on her. 14 calls. 2 emails. 1 letter. 1 intermediary. Rejected. Blocked. Returned. On the 6th day, I stopped trying, not because I didn't care, because I realized this wasn't new. This was every science fair they skipped. Every time Monica's version of events became law without trial. This was just the final ruling. Marcus died in December. I was the only one in the room when the monitor went flat. No one from Hartford called. The only person who knew why I'd stepped away from school was the one who had weaponized it. Marcus died on a Sunday morning. Pale winter light through the hospice window. No dramatic speeches. No final revelations. Just a slow exhale that never turned into another inhale. I stood there longer than I should have. The monitor was flat. The room was quiet. And for a few seconds, I felt the full weight of what had happened. I had lost my best friend. And I had lost my family in the same semester. I organized a small funeral. 7 people showed up. 2 classmates. A nurse from oncology. Marcus's former foster brother drove up from Eugene. I gave the eulogy in a chapel built for 60. Staring at rows of empty pews. I didn't cry. I'd been crying for 3 months straight. There was nothing left. That night, I went back to the apartment we'd shared. His coffee mug was still in the sink. His jacket still on the hook by the door. I sat on the kitchen floor, with my back against the cabinet, and opened my laptop. The re-enrollment form was still in my inbox. 2 options. Crumble or climb. I almost closed it. Almost let the silence from Hartford define the rest of my life. Then I found something tucked inside Marcus's copy of Gray's Anatomy. A sticky note marking the chapter on the pancreas. Finish it. Become the surgeon you're supposed to be. Don't let anyone decide who you are. His handwriting was uneven. He must have written it during chemo. I stared at that note for a long time. Then I filled out the re-enrollment form. I went back in January. No family. No safety net. $46 in my checking account, and a student loan portal open in another tab. I took on more debt. Picked up a part-time research assistant position. 8 hospital cafeteria leftovers more nights than I'll admit. Medical school doesn't slow down because your life collapsed. Anatomy exams don't reschedule themselves because you were disowned. So I stopped waiting for it to hurt less. And I worked. I worked like the only thing left in the world that made sense was precision. Sutures. Protocols. Clean margins. I graduated on time. No one from Hartford came. Aunt Ruth did. She clapped loud enough for 5 people. I matched into a surgical residency at Mercy Crest Medical Center back in Connecticut, a level 1 trauma center, one of the busiest in the state. That's where I met Dr. Margaret Thornton. Maggie was 58, built like a steel cable in a lab coat. She didn't waste words and didn't tolerate excuses. The first time she scrubbed in with me, she watched my hands for 5 minutes and said, "You're steady. Don't let anything shake that." She became the mentor I didn't know I needed. 3rd year of residency. I met Elena Cruz, civil rights attorney, sharp mind, dark humor, the kind of calm that doesn't try to fix you, it just stands next to you. I told her the full story one night on her apartment balcony. No dramatics, just facts. She listened, didn't interrupt. When I finished, she said 4 words that landed harder than anything else had. "You deserved better, Adrienne." That was it. No pity. No outrage. Just clarity. We got married on a Saturday afternoon in Maggie's backyard. 30 guests. Elena's father shook my hand before walking her down the aisle. I sent an invitation to Hartford. It came back unopened. Aunt Ruth cried enough for 2 parents. After the ceremony, Maggie handed me a sealed envelope. "Don't open it yet," she said. "You're not ready." I put it in my desk drawer and didn't ask questions. 5 years passed. I became someone my family wouldn't recognize. And before I go any further, if you've ever had your side of the story buried under someone else's lie, drop a in the comments. Not for me. For you, because surviving that takes more strength than people admit. Now let's keep going. Because what happened next, even I didn't see it coming. January. Present day. I'm 32 years old. Chief of Trauma Surgery at Mercy Crest Medical Center. The same hospital where I trained. The same corridors I once ran through as a resident, with blood on my shoes and caffeine in my veins. Now my name is on the door. I have a house 15 minutes from the hospital. A porch that catches the morning light. A wife who reads legal briefs at the kitchen table and argues with the news on Sundays. A golden retriever named Atlas who believes every closed door is a personal insult. It's a good life. Solid. Built. Not inherited. But there's a specific kind of absence that doesn't dissolve with success. It sits somewhere behind your ribs. Quiet. Manageable. Permanent. Every Thanksgiving, when I set the table, there's a half second where I count the plates and feel it. Not grief exactly. Just vacancy. Aunt Ruth still calls every Sunday. She's my only thread back to Hartford. I never ask about my parents. I never ask about Monica. But Ruth volunteers updates anyway. Your mom's been quieter lately. Your dad's blood pressure's acting up. Monica finalized her divorce 2 years ago. Last week, Ruth called with something different in her voice. Hesitation. Adrian, there's something you should know about Monica. Before she could finish, my pager went off. Level 1 trauma. I told her I'd call back. I didn't. Because what Ruth was about to tell me was already in motion. It was driving north on I-91 inches, a sedan that was about to run a red light. And within the hour, it would be bleeding out on my operating table, with my parents in the waiting room. Before the accident, before the pager, before the operating room, there was something else I need you to understand. Monica didn't tell one lie and move on. She built a system. Over the years, Aunt Ruth fed me pieces carefully, like she was diffusing something volatile. Every holiday, Monica performed the same role, the grieving older sister. We don't really talk about Adrian. She'd say softly at Thanksgiving, it's too painful for Mom and Dad. She let silence do the heavy lifting. Then she added details. She told our grandmother I was living out of my car. She told Uncle Pete's wife she'd heard I was in rehab. She told my mother I refused to answer her calls. She inverted the entire story. According to Monica, I wasn't exiled. I was ashamed. I had cut them off. I couldn't face what I'd done. The brilliance, if I can call it that, was that she turned my absence into proof. The less I appeared, the more believable her version became. And then there was the part my wife didn't tell me for 2 years. Elena mentioned it one morning over coffee. Her tone controlled in that lawyer way she uses before dropping something heavy. 2 years ago, someone contacted your old medical school, she said. Used a fake name. Asked about disciplinary actions, credential verification, whether your leave of absence had been revoked. I went still. The IP trace came from Hartford. Monica hadn't just lied. She'd been maintaining the architecture, reinforcing it, hunting for cracks in my career she could exploit to keep the narrative alive. That's not jealousy. That's preservation of territory. She wasn't protecting my parents. She was protecting her position as the only successful child left standing. And 5 years of deception were about to collide with fluorescent hospital lighting at 3. The pager dragged me out of sleep. Level 1 trauma. Female. Sensual. Blunt abdominal trauma. Hemodynamically unstable. ETA 8 minutes. I was dressed in 4. In my car in 6. The roads were black and wet. That particular January darkness that feels endless. I ran the case in my head automatically. Mechanism of injury. Likely splenic rupture. Possible liver involvement. Internal bleeding probability high. Routine. Clinical. Controlled. I badged in through the ambulance entrance and walked toward the trauma bay. The team was already assembling. 2 residents. Charge nurse. Anesthesia prepping. I grabbed the intake tablet from the desk and swiped to the chart. Patient. Monica Ouellette. DOB matched. Emergency contact. Gerald Ouellette. For 2 seconds, the hallway noise dulled. Then it snapped back into focus. Ouellette, Linda asked beside me. You good? I set the tablet down carefully. Prep Bay 2. Paige Patel for standby. The ambulance siren grew louder. The doors burst open, and the stretcher rolled in fast. Monica was strapped down. Unconscious. Oxygen mask fogging. Blood spreading across her blouse. One arm hung limp off the rail. Paramedics rattled off numbers, BP dropping. Tachycardic. 2 large bore IVs running wide open. Behind them came my parents. My mother looked smaller, thinner, her hair more gray than I remembered. She was wearing a coat thrown over pajamas. My father had on jeans and a flannel, face drained of color. That's my daughter. He barked at the triage nurse. Where's the chief? I want the chief surgeon. The nurse glanced toward the operating corridor. Toward me. The chief is already here, she said. My father didn't understand what she meant. They were escorted toward the waiting area while we wheeled Monica into the bay. I stepped into the scrub room alone, 30 seconds. I turned on the water and stared at my reflection in the stainless steel panel. Warped. Distorted. Part of me wanted to step aside. Call Patel in. Remove myself completely. Let someone else carry this weight. But Monica's blood pressure was collapsing. She would be dead in under 40 minutes without immediate intervention. And the best surgeon in that building was me. I picked up the phone and paged Patel directly. Conflict of interest. I said when he answered, "Patient is my sister. I'm disclosing. If my judgment slips, you take over." Understood. Chief. Everything documented. By the book. Then I pushed through the OR doors. Monica lay under surgical lights, pale against white sheets. For 3 seconds, I allowed one memory through 2 kids at a kitchen table. Homework spread everywhere. Her tapping a pencil against her teeth. Then I shut that door. Scalpel. 3 hours and 40 minutes. Ruptured spleen, we removed it. Grade 3 liver laceration repaired. Layer by layer. 2 mesenteric bleeds clamped. Cauterized. Stabilized. My hands were steady. My voice even. Suction. Retract. Lap pad. The residents watched closely. I didn't falter. Couldn't. I placed the final closing stitch. Her vitals stabilized. Blood pressure normalized. Output steady. Alive. Patel lowered his mask. That was flawless. He said quietly, "Want me to speak to the family?" I stripped off my gloves and washed my hands. "No," I said. "This one's mine." The hallway to the waiting room felt longer than it ever had. Fluorescent lights. Morning shift arriving. Coffee carts rattling past. When I pushed through the double doors, my parents stood immediately. My father stepped forward. "Doctor, how is she?" His eyes dropped to my badge, then lifted to my face, then back to the badge. Recognition moved through him slowly, like something physically painful. My mother saw it a half-second later. Her hand shot out and gripped his forearm so hard his sleeve twisted under her fingers. 5 seconds of silence. I spoke first. "Clinical. And Mrs. Hewlett. I'm Dr. Hewlett. Your daughter sustained a ruptured spleen and significant liver damage. Surgery was successful. She's stable and in ICU. Not mom. Not dad. And Mrs. Hewlett." My mother's mouth opened, but no sound came out. My father's voice came rough. "Adrienne, you're the chief." Silence again. Behind me. Through the glass partition. Nurses were pretending not to watch. For 5 years, they believed I'd destroyed my life. Now I was standing in front of them in surgical scrubs. Blood still under my fingernails. Having just rebuilt theirs. My mother whispered, "But Monica said you." I know what she said. My father stared at the floor. "We thought." I know. There was nothing dramatic in my tone. No raised voice. Just fact. "She'll live." I added, "You can see her in an hour." I stepped aside, gave them space to process the reality that the son they erased had just saved the daughter they chose. 5 years of silence had led to this corridor, and karma didn't look loud or vengeful. It looked like a man in scrubs. Steady hands. And a badge they couldn't ignore. They didn't move for several seconds after I finished speaking. My mother was the first to step forward. "Adrienne." Her voice broke on my name like it hadn't been used in years. She lifted her arms instinctively, as if the last 5 years had been a misunderstanding that could be solved with a hug. I took half a step back. Not aggressive. Not dramatic. Just clear. Her hands hovered in the air before slowly lowering. My father cleared his throat. He looked like a man trying to stand upright in an earthquake. "You're telling me you're the chief of trauma surgery here. For how long?" 2 years. He swallowed. His eyes flicked to my badge again, like it might disappear if he blinked. "But Monica told us you dropped out. She showed us messages. She said you were involved with someone unstable, that you were hiding things." "That was a lie," I said evenly. "I filed a formal leave of absence to care for a dying friend. It was approved. I sent you the paperwork. Twice. I sent you the dean's number. I mailed a letter." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. "We never. You returned it unopened." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Facts carry their own weight. I called 14 times in 5 days. I continued. "You blocked me." The fluorescent lights hummed above us. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor beeped steadily. My father looked like he wanted to argue. That old reflex to assert, to dominate, to be right. It flickered behind his eyes. Then it faded. "This isn't the place," he muttered weakly. "You're right," I said. "This is a hospital, and I just spent 3 hours and 40 minutes making sure your daughter survives." Silence landed hard. At that moment, Linda pushed through the doors, clipboard in hand. She wasn't aware of the full gravity of what she was interrupting. "Ulette," she said. The board chair saw the trauma report. "He asked me to pass along congratulations from the Physician of the Year committee. They were reviewing your nomination last week. After tonight, it's unofficial. But you should know." She smiled politely and stepped back. My mother stared at me. "Physician of the Year. It's internal recognition," I said. Not relevant right now, but it was relevant. It dismantled the last pillar of the story they'd believed. The dropout. The failure. The embarrassment. My father's shoulders sagged in a way I had never seen before. "We thought you were lost." "I wasn't lost," I replied. "You just stopped looking." My mother began to cry deep. Unrestrained sobs that echoed off sterile tile. My father didn't cry. Not yet. He just stood there, jaw clenched, eyes wet, staring at the floor like it might open and swallow him whole. "I'll update you again after rounds," I said professionally. "For now, she's stable." I turned toward the ICU corridor. Behind me, I heard my mother whisper, "Jerry, what have we done?" For the first time in my life, my father had no answer. Monica regained consciousness 4 hours later. ICU room 6. Morning light cutting through half-closed blinds. Monitors steady. IV lines running clean. I entered for the standard post-op evaluation. Chart in hand. Neutral expression. Her eyes were open, glassy from anesthesia, but aware. They moved to me, paused, dropped to my badge, then widened. "Adrian." Her voice was dry, cracked. "Good morning," I said. "You're stable. We removed your spleen and repaired your liver. You're going to recover." She kept staring at the badge. You're actually a surgeon." "I've been one for years." I watched it happen in real time, the recalibration. Confusion. Shock. Then, the familiar flicker behind her eyes. Strategy forming. "I can explain," she whispered. "You don't need to explain anything to me." I tilted my head slightly toward the glass door. My parents were standing outside, waiting to be allowed in. "You need to explain it to them." I finished the exam and stepped into the hallway. Before my parents could go inside, I held up a hand. "There's something else you need to know." They looked at me like students awaiting a verdict. "For 5 years," I said evenly. Monica didn't just tell one lie. She maintained it. My father frowned faintly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she told relatives I was homeless, that I was in rehab, that I refused to speak to you." My mother shook her head slowly. "No, she wouldn't. She also contacted my medical school under a fake name 2 years ago." I continued. "She tried to verify whether I'd been disciplined. She was looking for something she could use to prove I was a fraud." That landed differently. My father's jaw tightened. "That's not possible." "It is." Right then, Aunt Ruth's voice cut through the corridor. "It's very possible." She walked toward us with her phone already in her hand. "Prepared." "I didn't come empty-handed," she said. She opened a folder, labeled simply, "Adrian, proof." First, screenshots of the emails I had sent 5 years ago. Timestamps. Attachments visible. Second, the official leave of absence paperwork. Dean's signature clear. Third, a photo from my residency graduation. Me in a cap and gown. Ruth standing beside me. Date visible in the background banner. Then she scrolled further. "And this," Ruth said quietly, "is a message Monica sent me 4 years ago." She read it aloud. "Don't tell Mom and Dad about Adrian's residency. They're finally at peace. It'll just confuse them." The hallway went silent. My mother's hand started shaking as she took the phone. She scrolled through each screenshot slowly, lips moving as she read. My father didn't take the phone. He turned and stared out the ICU window at the parking lot. For a long time, no one spoke. Then my father's shoulders began to shake. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was the first time in 62 years that I saw him cry. Inside the ICU room, Monica lay still. No performance. No script. For the first time in her life, there was nothing left to say. Monica was discharged 2 weeks later. Physically stable. Prognosis good. The rest of it, not my department. I met with her once she could walk without assistance. Neutral ground. A quiet cafe halfway between our houses. My wife, Elena, sat near the window with a file open, close enough to see, far enough not to interfere. I didn't waste time. "You don't get to apologize and move on," I said. "That's not how this works." She nodded, smaller than I remembered. "You will send an email to every family member you lied to. All 47 of them. You will correct every story. No excuse. No soft language. Just facts. I will. And you'll copy Aunt Ruth. Another nod. I met my parents separately the following week. Same kitchen table. Same overhead light. If you want a relationship with me, I said calmly, you start therapy. Both of you, not because I need it, because you need to understand how you believed a lie about your own son for 5 years without verifying a single detail. My father bristled. We don't do therapy. That's why we're here. My mother reached for his hand. He hesitated. Then he nodded once. Boundaries aren't emotional. They're structural. A month later was the Physician of the Year Gala at the Hartford Marquis. 200 guests. Surgeons. Board members. Administrators. When they called my name, the room stood. I walked to the stage. Lights warm against my face. 5 years ago. I said into the microphone. I learned that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who shows up. Sometimes the people who show up aren't the ones you expected. And sometimes the ones who didn't find their way back. In the last row sat my parents, not in the spotlight, just present. After the ceremony, my father approached Elena near the coat check. I should have been the one to stand beside him. He said quietly. Elena extended her hand. Then stand beside him now. He nodded. Not redeemed, but beginning. Monica sent the email on a Wednesday night at 9. Aunt Ruth confirmed it went to all 47 relatives. No blind copies. No selective edits. I didn't read it immediately. I waited until morning. Elena placed a cup of coffee beside my laptop and left the room without saying anything. She knows when silence is respect. It was 3 paragraphs. Direct, clinical, almost sterile. She admitted she lied about my medical leave. She admitted fabricating messages. She admitted telling extended family I was unstable, unemployed, estranged by choice. She admitted contacting my medical school under a false identity to undermine me. She ended with, Adrian never abandoned this family. I made sure you believed he did. That responsibility is entirely mine. The replies came in waves. Some were stunned, some furious, some quiet. Uncle Pete's wife sent a message apologizing for repeating the rehab story at a book club. Cousin David responded to Monica with a single line. I don't know who you are anymore. No one organized a public exile. They didn't need to. Trust isn't revoked dramatically. It erodes. And for someone who built her identity on being believed, silence was a harsher punishment than outrage. Invitations grew fewer. Group chats became quieter when she entered. No one attacked her. They just stopped defaulting to her version of events. My parents began therapy in February. Rena in West Hartford. Direct. Not impressed by defensiveness. My mother adapted quickly. She'd spent decades smoothing over conflict. The therapist named it plainly. Enabling through silence. My mother cried through most of the second session. My father struggled. He sat rigid in the chair, answering questions, like depositions. But he kept going back. That mattered. 3 weeks in, my mother mailed me a letter, handwritten. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I failed you, she wrote, not only when I believed her, but every time I chose quiet over fairness. Every time I convinced myself you were strong enough not to need defending. I read it once, then again. I didn't cry. I opened the drawer in my office, where I keep things that changed me. Marcus's sticky note. The returned envelope from 5 years ago. My wedding invitation that came back unopened. I placed her letter inside. Same drawer. Different category. Monica and I met 3 more times. Each conversation slightly less defensive than the last. I don't expect forgiveness, she said during the 3rd meeting. I just don't want to be that person anymore. Then don't be. I replied. Show me. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a pattern observed over time. She carries my surgical scar across her abdomen. 7 inches, fading from red to white. I carry 5 years of absence behind my ribs. We're not even, but we're no longer pretending. And that's the first honest foundation we've ever had. Sunday morning, 1st week of February. Light snow drifting past the kitchen window. The kind that doesn't stick, just softens the edges of everything it touches. I'm at the stove making French toast. Elena's grinding coffee beans, arguing with the radio like it personally offended her. Atlas is stationed under the table, hopeful and strategic. The doorbell rings. I wipe my hands on a towel and open it. My parents stand on the porch. My father is holding a bottle of orange juice like he's not sure why he brought it. My mother has a tin of shortbread cookies, the kind she used to make for Monica's school events. Hi, she says. Tentative, come in, I reply. Coffee's almost ready. They step inside slowly, taking in the house they've never seen, the life they nearly erased. My father clears his throat. Can I help with anything? It's the first time in my memory he's asked me that. You can set the table, I say. He nods, walks to the cabinet I point to, takes out plates, counts them, looks at me. 4. He sets them down carefully, one by one, like they matter. My mother hugs me at the stove. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just quiet. Atlas thumps his tail. The coffee machine hisses. Snow keeps falling. It's not perfect, it's not erased, but it's real. My name is Dr. Adrian Willett. I'm 32 years old, and I'm learning slowly, deliberately how to let myself be someone's son again. For plates, it's a beginning. If you were in my position, would you have opened that door? Tell me in the comments.